Oh, how wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. We are so glad you're able to be with us today. I've always loved your music, and I understand that the cello is the one instrument that is closest to the human voice, and it's very connective to us. And I understand that you are playing on a very special instrument today, a Baroque cello. Is that right? Yes, we're getting the nod. How exciting.
Yes, it is. It's 1787. I think this cello was made an English cello. It's a different bow, an entirely different, like no end pin. I'm holding it up with my legs, gut strings, different internal specs. A different sound that you would appreciate more, I guess, if you were hearing it compared to my modern cello that I've always played for you otherwise. But I've got gigs on this one, and I thought you might be interested in hearing it. And it's
Oh,
Bach's birthday month, so we got to celebrate that.
yay. Oh, thank you for that. Oh, how
Thank you.
exciting. Oh, goosebumps. And Reverend Ray, how wonderful to have you with us today too, as well. Each time you join us, you make a special connection, and I'm so looking forward to your energy and your message today. Thank you. And I'm Chic Welsh-Charrier. I'm happy and honored to be the platform assistant today. Now it's time for a centering prayer. I'm using basing my prayers, two prayers today on two beautiful ones that I found in the Unity publication, Mornings with Myrtle. So please join me in prayer. I focus my awareness on the truth of myself as a spiritual being, one with Source, the divine I am. I am an extension of the one power and one presence in and through all creation. I open to the full flow of spiritual light and love that is my birthright. I let inner light bathe me with spiritual sunshine, cleansing space on the altar of my mind so that wholeness, health, abundance, and inspiration can flood in. I claim my good and affirm that my light radiates to all beings I encounter, bringing healing and love to all. I say thank you for the oneness, love, and light that is the truth of my being. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.
So let us start with Namaste and Blessings, Unity Center of DC, my beloved Unity family. Thank you for, inviting me. I am honored and grateful to be with you again, especially grateful because of the recent car accident that my sister Tracy and I were in, head-on collision. So I am extremely grateful that I am well and that she is recovering and things are good. Interestingly enough, how this fits in with what we're talking about today. Bloom where you are planted. So we start with the question, how do we cultivate life in a way so that we can bloom? And actually, you know what? I'm going to tweak this and I'm going to borrow from Chic when he read the Daily Word today. How do we cultivate life with confident assurance of our divinity so that we can bloom? Breathe. There's a lot of analogies we could use to talk about this, but I'm going to use one in particular that I don't do, but I like to watch: surfing. There are times when we glide along the waves. We're having fun, we're enjoying the ride, and then there are times when, for various reasons, we lose our balance, we fall into the water. Now, sometimes we simply fall into the water and we swim, we regain control. And then there are other times when the force of the waves provides a great deal of resistance. And so we work and we struggle to ensure that we do not drown. Now, there are a lot of things that we could look at in our lives as the waves: grief, anger, confusion, a diagnosis from our medical professionals, some form of physical harm, an addiction, corruption, and more. There are a lot of things that we could easily and readily identify as the challenges of life. And yet spring is our divine reminder that we get to rise again, no matter what is going on around us. We get to live based upon what is going on within us and as us, rather than what's going on around us. We have great examples of precisely how people did this. We can look at, why did the women's suffragist movement arise? As a response to women being oppressed and their power being suppressed. Why did the gay liberation movement birth out of police violence and more? Why were there people such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman fighting for freedom and liberation? The response to slavery. The civil rights movement, the response to a Jim Crow South. We have the examples. Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, where he very clearly identifies how he bloomed where he was planted in the middle of a concentration camp, in the midst of the Holocaust. We have examples of how we can do exactly that. Live with the assurance that that which is our divinity is living, moving, and having its beingness as us, no matter what's going on. How many times have we seen a photo, or we might have been walking down the street, and we see the asphalt or the concrete, and it's cracked, and there's a dandelion peeking through, or there's grass growing. No matter what covers the earth, Gaia, Mother Nature, will not stay quiet. And so the earth shifts and the concrete cracks, and that which is beneath grows through. When we are suppressed and submerged and buried, how do we choose to access that same divinity and rise again? We know the story of Yeshua, Jesus, buried in a tomb, and yet he rose again. We have the invitation to recognize that Christ consciousness, the very power of that divinity, gives us the fortitude, the resilience, the wisdom, the intelligence, the whatever it is that we need in order to not just survive, not just to exist, but to truly live and to thrive. Spring, a time of rebirth, renewal, revitalization, and resurrection. A time where we get to live life to the fullness. And to borrow a quote from Margaret Atwood, in the spring, at the end of the day, we should smell like dirt. This spring, let us joyously dig into the richness of life and smell like D-I-R-T. Smell like dirt. Divinity, inspiration, radiance, and truth. We get to choose. Breathe. Now, if we are going to effectively learn and master this art of surfing, this art of blooming where we are planted, we have to ask ourselves and each other a couple of questions. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for you to bloom? What does that look like? In the same way that a rose blooms and a tulip blooms, they bloom differently because they are different expressions of the divine. How do you bloom? And what does it mean for you to be planted, not buried, planted? And if planted, what is the soil that you are planted into that you then bloom from? I would dare to say that one of the things that gives Nancy the capacity to share what she shares with us is there is this deep, rich soil of her soul, because she doesn't simply play music. No one who is a master musician simply plays music. That's a technician. A technician can hit the notes. An artist bears their soul. How are we showing up in the same way? We don't have a Baroque cello. How do we show up with the musical instrument of our lives, our hearts, our voice, the way that we show up in resistance, knowing the oneness of God? How do we play the harp strings of the universe and sing the voice celestial in order to demonstrate what we know to be the truth, the whole truth, and only that which is true about that which is God, that which is source, that which is the universe itself, incarnating as us, in us, and through us? You know, Myrtle Fillmore says in How to Let God Help You, sometimes the soul gets so anxious about what it wishes to do that it tends to neglect the body. Pause on that one. She said, what now? She said something about neglecting the body because of anxiety. Breathe. She goes on to say, this is not fair to the body, nor to those who must take care of the body when it is neglected. Your first duty then is to bless your body. Get your thoughts right down into it and praise its wonderful work. Learn what your body needs and arrange for the supply for those needs to be met. Now, we know what she's talking about. We may not use the words, that she's using, but what she's talking about is self-care. Do we have a mental equivalent of self-care? I'm sorry, Nancy, I'm going to use you as my example once again. I would venture to say that Nancy takes great care of her instrument. I would venture to say she doesn't leave it out in the rain. She doesn't leave it in a hot car. She doesn't walk off the metro and oh, shoot, it's on the blue line going to China right now. Darn. She takes great care of it. And I would venture to say that the instrument that plays the instrument, she takes care of it as well. Because she knows if she's not hydrated, if she's not limber and flexible and in the zone, breathe. Because that is too our invitation. How do we anchor into the mental equivalent of our thoughts, our words, our emotions, our actions in order to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, financially, and spiritually? For us, what is the fertilizer? For us, what is the water? For us, what is the light? For us, what is the CO2? What nourishes us to be able to face whatever occurs during the day and have a level of resilience that says, the winds are strong, I may bend, but I will not break. What gives us the fortitude to let our roots sink deep into the earth and stand like the mighty oak? What gives us the ability to bloom like the sunflower? What gives us the ability to bloom with a radiance and an aroma that invites the bees to come and do what they do, moving pollen from flower to flower to flower to further nurture what it means to bloom. See, we don't do any of this in isolation. You know, if Nancy decided, I am going to become a master cellist, Nancy, who are you going to play for? No one, just myself. You said, what? You're spending how much money to learn how to do this and how much time to do this to only sit in your own kitchen and never play for? Exactly. What would be the point? Why become an interpreter to never interpret for? Why become a pilot to never enter a plane? Why become a teacher to never? Wait, say what now? We do this because this is how spirit loves itself. The music that Nancy is playing is how the universe holds us and caresses us and reminds us, I got you. I love you. I am you. The way the music moves through us and we get goosebumps or God bumps, the way the hair stands up on our neck and our arms because we are so moved. In the same way we are moved when someone recites a beautiful poem. They are pollinating us and giving us the capacity to now bloom, to rise again and face whatever it is that we may be challenged with that particular day. And when not challenged, we get to share the laughter and the love to once again further pollinate, further share, further bloom, further inspire, further smell like dirt. No matter where we go, we have the opportunity to show up as the divine, as inspiration, as radiance and truth, no matter where we go, no matter what's going on. How do we anchor and remain, as Myrtle Fillmore says, be still, be still, be still. God in the midst of you is substance. God in the midst of you is love. God in the midst of you is wisdom. Let not your thoughts be given over to lack, but let this wisdom fill them with the substance of faith of God. Let not your heart be a center of resentment and fear and doubt. Be still and know that at this moment, it is the altar of God, the altar of love. Love so sure. Wait, you say so sure. Oh, back to that assurance of our divinity. Be so sure and unfailing. Love so irresistible and so magnetic that it draws your supply to you from the great storehouse of the universe. Trust God. Trust that wisdom. Trust and prove and express that love. Be still. Is that what we're doing? Is that how we are showing up? Are we showing up in a way where she says, On the mountaintop, we receive new illumination, new inspiration, and insight into the providing law. Then we have a work to do away from the mountaintop. We get enlightened. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. We go to the mountaintop. We receive whatever that is that we receive, and we return back in order to live life fully. Because if we're not doing that, then what's the point? Why study, and why engage in Lent, and why go to meditations and singing bowl healing circles, and why? Because, as Carl Sagan said, you are the way that the universe knows itself. That's why. Because the way that we show up, the way that we live, the way that we thrive, the way that we express love is the way that the universe is doing it. So we need not expect something outside of us to save us or rescue us or whatever that is. We get to do it. We get to hold each other up in community. In the same way that, as we know, forest, beneath the surface, there's a mycelial network of how the mushrooms and the roots and the trees, and they all communicate and they all support one another. But on the surface, it looks like one tree, one bush. But beneath the surface, they are all connected. The infinite oneness of the network. God is one. We may look around and see Sarah and Jan and John and Ray and Chic, but beneath the surface, we see God, we see love, we see spirit. And so how do we now communicate through that network of oneness? How do we, taking that invitation, show up? There's a Unity minister, Reverend Kelly Isola, who said in an article, service was always part of the journey. And in referencing Myrtle Fillmore, she says that Myrtle says, I speak the truth and I make the world wherein I walk. I speak the truth and I make the world wherein I walk. Do you understand what kind of assurance this woman must have had to be able to say that I am a sculptor of conditions? Conditions don't shape me. I shape them. Clay doesn't show up and then go up to the potter and be like, I'm going to turn you into a vase. No, you're not. This is not the way it works. The sculptor molds the clay into whatever it is. But as Michelangelo once said, oh, I don't sculpt angels, or I don't know. What I do is see the angel in the stone, and I chip away everything that is not the angel until only the angel is left. We are sculptors of. Chip away everything that is not like love. Chip away everything that is not like the assurance of your divinity. Only leave that which is the divine expression of all that God is as you, and then show up in the world that way. Reverend Kelly goes on to say, in Myrtle's words, so are you doing that which brings you closer to the expression of life, to that goodness? Because we need to be good for something in this world in which we live, this world where we are creating. We need to be good. As Emma Curtis Hopkins would say, my good is my God. And when we allow that goodness to be the truth of our being, no matter what we are doing, no matter where we are going, to say, I make mistakes, but I am still the goodness of God expressing. Sometimes I make a wrong note. I'm still the goodness of God expressing. Sometimes I fall into the habit of lack and scarcity, but I am still the goodness of God expressing. But sometimes I am still the goodness of God expressing. That truth cannot be changed no matter what. No matter what, that is the truth of our being. So what are we doing with it? How are we allowing that truth, that assurance to show up in us, through us, and as us, no matter what? Breathe. Just a real quick before we go into our thoughts or prayers. Since I mentioned it at the beginning, and I don't know how many of you know that this even happened, but on March 16th, Tracy and I, while leaving the Unity Spiritual Center, coastal Delaware, we were driving home and there was already an accident at this one particular intersection, Coastal Highway and Hudson. And as we were slowing, approaching the stop sign where the accident was, a car came the other way and instead of turning into their lane, turned into our lane, full speed, head-on collision. Because there was already an accident at the scene, there were already state troopers there and firefighters there who saw the accident happen and ran over to us. And what they communicated to me was they ran over to us expecting to, because they've seen accidents before, at less speed. They were expecting to see blood and broken bones. They saw neither. And so what they said was, you two are extremely lucky. Now, the first time I let it go, but the second and third time I heard it, we're not lucky, we're blessed. How do we show up even in the midst of great calamity? How do we show up when we watch the news or something on social media about some new whatever executive order or something? And we are so grounded and so assured of our divinity that none of that can cause us to wilt or fade away, because we know who and what we are as divine incarnations of the One, Christ consciousness, the infinite I am, showing up as us. Breathe, and we sing. And so we breathe. We breathe and we enter into that space of infinite awareness, remembering that we cannot re-breathe Saturday's breath. We cannot pre-breathe Monday's breath. We cannot save a breath for a rainy day. Simply this divine inhalation and this divine exhalation anchoring us right here and right now. It is in this space of right here and right now that we choose, consciously choose, to recognize and to be aware of our own divinity. And from this awareness, from this recognition, we develop greater confidence and assurance. The assurance that says, I know that I am whole, perfect, and complete, even when something shows up, something happens that does not appear to be wholeness, perfection, or completeness. We know the truth no matter what. We embody the truth no matter what. We express the truth no matter what. In the same way that if someone were to walk up to any of us and say, you are probably the most beautiful flamingo I have ever seen in my life. In the same way that none of us would question and doubt, or question and wonder, or question and, am I a flamingo? When did I become one? What kind am I? We do not question the truth. We know who and what we are. So when the collective consciousness comes to us and tries to convince us that we are something other than that which is the divine expressing, we hold fast to the truth as it says in Sanskrit, Om Tat Sat. I am that. I am that which is all that there is. Very similarly, we may remember in the Hebrew, I am that I am, which I was told with a more accurate translation is, I am that which is ever becoming more of itself. So we breathe and allow that which is the infinite I am to ever become more of itself as us, right here and right now. And we breathe into the silence. And as we breathe, we remember that not only are our thoughts prayers, but that the way that we show up in the world, the way that we greet our neighbor, a prayer. The way that we walk our dog, prayer. The way that we lay our head down at night to go to sleep, prayer. The way that we eat a meal, prayer. The way that we show up every day, prayer. Because amen is not simply something we say. Prayer is not something simply we do at a select time. Prayer is how we live. And amen is how we affirm the assurance of our life, recognizing that that which is the divine is right where we are, right now. And so it is.
please join me. This again is adapted from Mornings with Myrtle Unity publication. In prayer, I create a space for wholeness to generate and expand in my mind, body, and life, to strengthen my intimate connection with my inner divinity. I consciously bring my awareness back to my center, where true wholeness resides. I know intuitively that my divine and holy spark, that eternal DNA that animates me, heals me, guides me, and protects me, will restore my conscious union with the power of the universe. In times when I feel unwell or blocked in any area, I can joyfully open my hands and let those obstacles go. I know that Spirit and I, working together as one, will achieve the freedom I seek. This regeneration, a kind of rebirth, a deeper awakening, brings with it a recognition of my oneness with the Creator. I pray with a whole heart of gratitude that wholeness is mine. And so it is. Amen.